morning, everyone. Since a few of you are very new and participating for the first time, so what I'll do is I'll just show our calendar to you so that you are going to have a better understanding what we do. So just give me a minute. I hope my screen is visible for everyone. Is it visible?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, as you all can see, we prepare a calendar every month, and on the last week of the current month, we publish the calendar for the next month. So right now it's like almost the last week. We have 29th will be the last week. So here, date-wise, we publish a calendar. We simultaneously read two books. One is in English and another one is in Hindi. We take turns in reading the English book. The first book, What You Are Looking For, is in the library, is read by Jugjeev sir, and the other book, My Family and Other Animals, is being read by Brinda ma'am. I'm the one who read the Hindi book, that is The Whistling Schoolboy or Anya Kahaniya. So our vision is reading, reflection, and building relationship. So we read, we interact. It is not one side; it's both the sides. So an interaction is being done, and whatever the children don't understand, they raise their hand or write in the chat box. And after the reading is done, we try to explain and solve the queries of the children. That is one thing. Reflection is after the session is over, like today it's around 12:30, the session will get over, so they will just write what is one or two things they loved about a session, or what one or two things they would like to see. They can write a book review, they can do some drawing, some podcast, anything, whatever is coming to their mind from the reading, they can send, and then those things are being published. So we publish everything, whatever I'm going to get from the students as well as the teachers also, because we firmly believe reading goes from 9 to 90 years of age group. So this is about My Good School, which happens on every Sunday 10:30 to 12:30. Then we have the Teachers Academy. Here we have Learning Forward Saturday, which is the professional program. Sandeep, as you all are aware, he takes this program. So here he is doing Wanted Backbencher, Last Ranker Teacher by Kavita Ghosh. So with this, the same thing we do, reading reflection to build a relationship, because we firmly believe if a child knows how to read, even the curriculum, the 5 or 6 main subjects which a child is reading doing in his school will not be that difficult. Reading is basically with comprehension. So a child will be able to comprehend only when the reflection is being done. So this is how. So this is all about GSA. And the GSA squad meeting is every Monday. We request all the coordinators of the school that please join us on Monday. Timings remain same, 5:30. So Sunday is only 10:30 to 12:30. Else Friday, Saturday, and Monday it is 5:30 to 6:15. Once a month, every month in the Brewing Knowledge session, we have some guests. And this is what you can see, March 16 to 27, the guest list is updated. So last time we have Chandra ma'am. She discussed about the weaving and the beauty of material, how to get it, how to organize it. She was telling us about Varanasi also. So she wrote a book also on that. So this is what she explained to us. And next week we are having Mr. Mahesh. So this is all about our sessions. Any questions which you feel I can take up? So you're most free to ask.
No, I mean, if you just go scroll up a little bit, Manisha, and you can sort of, you can then be able to show where the reflections are. Manisha ma'am is reading from or showing us is the Joy of Learning Diary. And we'll get
I'll
back
show where
and
the
read
reflection
something.
is. Just 1 minute, sir.
Yeah, no, we'll come back and look at it in a bit, but let's get
Okay.
on with Brinda ma'am's section.
Sure, sir. I'll just put up the book.
Yeah.
Is it visible?
No, Manisha.
Yeah.
Ma'am, please.
Yeah, now it is.
Yeah.
Right. So I think children, I don't know, some of the children over here are very new. So let me just tell you all that we are reading from a book called My Family and Other Animals. This is by Gerald Durrell. And Gerald Durrell was a naturalist, one of the um, probably the only person in the world to have owned his own zoo. And this book that we are reading is about his childhood, which was in an island called Corfu Island in Greece. Jerry was just about 10 or 11 years old at that time when he stayed with his mother, his two elder brothers, and an elder sister in this place. And since he was interested right from childhood in every creature, everything that crawled or walked, he was interested in finding out more about them. So he spent most of his days going around looking at various creatures in nature. And he then was lucky enough to have two teachers, one who has just come into his life called Theodore, and the other one was his first teacher was a gentleman who taught him tried to teach him maths and history and other things. But the most interesting thing is that both these teachers were biologists and zoologists, and that is what Gerald was so happy about. So, in the last chapter that we were reading, which we are going to continue with, we read about how Theodore explained to Gerald about a creature, a kind of a species of spiders known as trapdoor spiders, and he came to know a lot about it. So now we will continue from there. And we also read about Cyclops. So I don't know if anybody from the last session is here, and we had asked them to do a little bit of a homework about trying and finding out what is the story in Greek mythology about Cyclops. So if there is anyone who wants to raise a hand and tell us about Cyclops, it would be nice. Otherwise, we can come back to it towards the end of the end of the reading. Right? Let me continue with this page. I shall start from the second para here, a little ahead of where we had stopped. Outside, the warm wind would shoulder the shutters, making them creak, and the raindrops would chase each other down the window pane like transparent tadpoles. Aha! It is curious that you should mention that. The peasants in Salonika have a very similar superstition. No, no, merely a superstition. I have a book here that gives a most interesting account of vampires in Bosnia. It seems that the local people there, tea would arrive. Now, if you all remember, children, we had spoken about how Theodore had invited Gerald to for tea, and there is this conversation going on between them. So let's carry on with this. Tea would arrive, the cake squatting on cushions of cream, toast in a melting shawl of butter, cups agleam, and a faint wisp of steam rising from the teapot spout. But on the other hand, it is impossible to say that there is no life on Mars. It is, in my opinion, quite possible that some form of life will be found, discovered there, should we ever succeed in getting there. But there is no reason to suppose that any form of life would found there would be identical. Sitting there, neat and correct in his tweed suit, Theodore would chew his toast slowly and methodically, his beard bristling, his eyes kindling with enthusiasm at each new subject that swam into our conversation. To me, his knowledge seemed inexhaustible. He was a rich vein of information, and I mined him assiduously. Okay? Now look at all these words over there. There are quite a few difficult words. I understand that. But let's just get the gist of the meaning. It doesn't matter if you don't know exactly what each word means over here. What you need to understand is that Gerald was fascinated with this man, Theodore, his teacher. He was fascinated with his knowledge, and Gerald felt that Theodore was someone who had inexhaustible knowledge. That means something that cannot be finished. That kind of knowledge. He was a rich vein of information. So much he knew about the animal and animal world or the natural world that Gerald felt that he should mind him very closely and learn as much as possible from Theodore. Not only was he a source of information, but look at the way Gerald describes the way Theodore is dressed. He says he was very nicely, beautifully, neatly dressed in a tweed suit. Tweed is a kind of material, and the way he ate was also very methodical, very systematic, very correct, right? So these are all qualities that are admirable in a gentleman, and Gerald admired Theodore for this. No matter what the subject, Theodore could, Manisha ma'am, please turn the page, could contribute something interesting to it. At last, I would hear Spyro honking his horn in the street below, and I would rise reluctantly to go. Reluctantly meaning not very willingly. Why do you think he was reluctant to go back with Spyro? Spyro was the one who drove him here, the driver of the car. Okay? Does anyone know the answer to my question? Why do you think Gerald was reluctant to go back? Does anyone want to answer? Just raise your hand and Manisha ma'am will unmute you, or you can unmute yourself. No one knows the meaning of reluctant? Hesitant, not really wanting to do something. So Gerald was reluctant to go away from Theodore because he was having a very good time with Theodore, learning so much that he wanted to learn from him. So when the car came to pick him up, he was reluctant to go back. Goodbye, Theodore would say, tugging my hand. It's been a pleasure having you. No, no, not at all. See you next Thursday when the weather gets better, less damp in the spring, you know. Perhaps we might go for some walks together, see what we can obtain. There are some most interesting ditches in the Val de Ropa. Yes, well, goodbye. Not at all. So he's saying not at all because Gerald must be thanking him, and he says, no, 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 it's okay, not at all. Driving back along the dark, rain washed roads, Spyro humming richly as he squatted behind the wheel. I would dream of the spring to come and of all the wonderful creatures that Theodore and I would capture. Eventually, the warm wind and the rain of winter seemed to polish the sky, so that when January arrived, it shone like a clear, tender blue. The same blue as that of the tiny flames that devoured the olive logs in the charcoal pits. The nights were still and cool, with a moon so fragile it barely freckled the sea with silver points. The dawns were pale and translucent until the sun rose. Mist wrapped like a gigantic silkworm cocoon and washed the island with a delicate bloom of gold dust. With March came the spring, and the island was flower filled, scented, and a flutter with new leaves. Okay, so some of you may be noticing even in our own places, it's springtime now, and you would have noticed that a lot of the trees have fresh leaves on it, and there are flowers blooming, and the whole atmosphere is filled with the smell of flowers. And that's what Jerry means by saying the island was flower filled and scented, scented with the smell or the fragrance of flowers. The cypress trees that had tossed and hissed during the winds of winter now stood straight and sleek against the sky, covered with a misty coat of greenish white cones. Waxy yellow crocuses appeared in great clusters, bubbling out among the tree roots and tumbling down the banks. Under the myrtles, the grape hyacinths lifted buds like magenta sugar drops, and the gloom of the oak thickets was filled with the dim smoke of 1,000 blue day irises. Anemones, delicate and easily wind bruised, lifted ivory flowers, the petals of which seemed to have dipped in wine. Vetch, marigold, asphodel, and 100 others flooded the fields and woods. Even the ancient olives, bent and hollowed by 1,000 springs, decked themselves in clusters of minute creamy flowers, modest and yet decorative as became their great age. So, just like we'll take a small break here. I want you to quickly read that on your screen and tell me the names of the flowers that you think you learned today. Later on, we will try and have a look at the flowers, or you can Google it yourselves. But someone can make a list, a mental list of all the names of the flowers that you've just read here. And tell me what are the flower names that you've just come across. Who's going to tell me? Quickly, so that we don't waste too much time here. Is there a hand raised? You can even tell me 2 or 3 or 4, whichever you recognize. Yes? Somebody said, ma'am. Can you unmute yourself and talk? Whoever wants to. Give me the names of the flowers that you read here. Yeah? Is there anyone here who wants to take a chance? There is no right or wrong answer or anything. It doesn't matter. You can just speak unhesitantly.
Ma'am, anemones.
Anemone, yes. What else?
Vetch.
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 Yeah.
Marigold.
Marigold.
Asphodel.
Very good. Okay. And earlier, before that, you have the myrtles and the grape, hyacinth, right? Then you have trees like the oak and the cypress mentioned over here, right? So a whole lot of very good. So what we can do, children, is that we can make a note of these names and later on we can Google and see what kind of flowers or what kind of trees it is. Then you will be able to understand this better. Okay. So I'm going to continue to read. Even the ancient olives, bent and hollowed by 1,000 springs, decked themselves in clusters of minute creamy flowers, modest and yet decorative as became their great age. It was no half-hearted spring, this. The whole island vibrated with it as though a great ringing chord had been struck. Everyone and everything heard it and responded. It was apparent in the gleam of flower petals, the flash of bird wings, and the sparkle in the dark, liquid eyes of the peasant girls. In the water-filled ditches, the frogs that looked newly enameled snored rapturous chorus in the lush weeds. In the village coffee shops, the wine seemed redder and somehow more potent. Potent means strong. Blunt, work-calloused fingers plucked at guitar strings with strange gentleness, and rich voices rose in lilting, haunting song. So, in short, everybody seemed to be enjoying spring and they were at their best colors, they were at their best mood, most happy. And the whole place, the whole atmosphere was full of this kind of the spirit of spring and happiness. Spring affected the family in a variety of ways. Larry was his eldest brother. Larry bought himself a guitar and a large barrel of strong red wine. He interspersed his bouts of work by playing haphazardly on the instrument and singing Elizabethan love songs in a meek tenor voice with frequent pauses for refreshment. This would soon induce a mood of melancholy, and the love songs would become more doleful. While between each, Larry would pause to inform whichever member of the family happened to be present that spring for him did not mean the beginning of a new year, but the death of the old one. The grave, he would proclaim, making the guitar rumble, yawned a little wider with each season. One evening, the rest of us had gone out and left mother and Larry alone together. Larry had spent the evening singing more and more dismally meaning hopelessly, sadly, until he had succeeded in working them both into a fit of acute depression. They attempted to alleviate the state with the aid of wine, but unfortunately, this had the reverse effect, for they were not used to the heavy wines of Greece. When we returned, we were somewhat startled to be greeted by mother standing at the door of the villa with a hurricane lantern. She informed us with ladylike precision and dignity that she wished to be buried under the rose bushes. The novelty of this lay in the fact that she had chosen such an accessible place for the disposal of her remains. Mother spent a lot of her spare time choosing places to be buried in, but they were generally situated in the most remote areas, and one had visions of the funeral cortege dropping exhausted by the wayside long before it had reached the grave. When left undisturbed by Larry, however, spring for mother meant an endless array of fresh vegetables with which to experiment and a riot of new flowers to delight her in the garden. There streamed from the kitchen a tremendous number of new dishes, soups, stews, savories, and curries, each richer, more fragrant, and more exotic than the last. Larry began to suffer from dyspepsia. Dyspepsia is a disorder of the stomach, an ailment of the stomach because of all the rich food that he was eating. Scorning the simple remedy of eating less, he procured an immense tin of bicarbonate of soda and would solemnly take a dose after every meal. Why do you eat so much if it upsets you, dear? Mother asked. It would be an insult to your cooking to eat less, Larry replied unctuously. You're getting terribly fat, said Margot. It's very bad for you. Nonsense, said Larry in alarm. I'm not getting fat. Mother, am I? You look as though you've put on a little weight, Mother admitted, surveying him critically. It's your fault, said Larry. You will keep tempting me with these aromatic delicacies. You're driving me to ulcers. I shall have to go on a diet. What's a good diet, Margot? Margot is short for Margaret. She was Gerald Durrell's sister. Well, said Margot, launching herself with enthusiasm into her favorite topic. You could try the orange juice and salad one. That is awfully good. There's the milk and raw vegetable one. That's good too, but takes a little time. Or there is the boiled fish and the brown bread one. I don't know what that's like. I haven't tried it yet. Dear God, exclaimed Larry, genuinely shocked. Are those diets? Yes, and they're all very good ones, said Margot earnestly. I've been trying the orange juice one, and it has done wonders for my acne. Now, a lot of you girls might know what acne are. Acne are pimples that appear after a certain age. Teenagers get acne, and Margot was troubled by her acne. No, said Larry firmly. I'm not going to do it if it means that I have to champ my way like a damned ungulate through bushels of raw fruit and vegetables. You will have to resign yourselves to the fact that I shall be taken from you at an early age, suffering from fatty degeneration of the heart. At the next meal, he took the precaution of having a large dose of bicarbonate beforehand, and then protested bitterly that the food tasted queer. Queer means strange. Now, food tasted strange to him because he had so much soda before he had this food. Margot was always badly affected by the spring. Her personal appearance, always of absorbing interest to her, now became almost an obsession. Piles of freshly laundered clothes filled her bedroom, while the washing line sagged under the weight of clothes newly washed. Singing shrilly and untunefully, she would drift about the villa, carrying piles of flimsy underwear of bottles of scents. She would seize every opportunity to dive into the bathroom in a swirl of white towels, and once in there, she was as hard to dislodge as a limpet from a rock. The family in turn would bellow and batter on the door. Bellow is to shout loudly because she took so long in the bathroom, getting no more satisfaction than an assurance that she was nearly finished, an assurance which we had learnt by bitter experience not to have any faith in. Eventually, she would emerge, glowing and immaculate, and drift from the house, humming, to sunbathe in the olive groves or to go down to the sea and swim. It was during one of
So,
these excursions to the sea that she met an over good
and
looking young Turk. Yes, somebody wants to say something? Okay. With unusual modesty, she did not inform anyone of her frequent bathing assignations with this paragon, feeling, as she told us later, that we would not be interested. It was, of course, Spyro who discovered it. He watched over Margot's welfare with the earnest concern of a Saint Bernard, and there was precious little she could do without Spyro knowing about it. He cornered Mother in the kitchen one morning, glanced surreptitiously around to make sure they were not overheard, sighed deeply, and broke the news to her. Okay, for those who don't understand what's happening here, now Margot, Gerald's sister, had found an interesting person who was a Turk. Okay, and she kept it a secret from the family. She didn't tell anybody that she had met this person, but Spyro, who knew everything that was going on in the island, had seen this and he was secretly sharing this with her mother. I'm very sorry to have to tells you this, Mrs. Durrells, he rumbled. But I thinks you ought to knows. Okay, now you have to take away the S so that you understand his English. Mother had by now become quite used to Spyro's conspiratorial air when he came to deliver some item of information about the family, and it no longer worried her. What's the matter now, Spyro? She asked. It's Missy Margot, said Spyro sorrowfully. What about her? Spyro glanced round uneasily. Does you knows she's meetings a man's? He inquired in a vibrant whisper. A man? Oh, yes, yes, I did know, said Mother, lying valiantly. Spyro hitched up his trousers over his belly and leant forward. But did you knows he's a Turk? He questioned in tones of blood-curdling ferocity. A Turk? Said Mother vaguely. No, I didn't know he was a Turk. What's wrong with that? Spyro looked horrified. Gollies, Mrs. Durrells, what's wrongs with it? He's a Turk. I wouldn't trust a son of a bitch Turk with any girls. He'll cuts her throats, that's what he'll do. Honest to God's, Mrs. Durrells, it's not safe. Missy Margot swimmings with hims. All right, Spyro, said Mother soothingly. I'll speak to Margot about it. I just thought you ought to knows, that's all. But don't you worries. If he did anything to Mrs. Margot, I'll fix him, Spyro assured her earnestly. Acting on the information received, Mother mentioned the matter to Margot in a slightly less blood curdling manner than Spyro's and suggested that the young Turk be brought up to tea. Delighted, Margot went off to fetch him, while Mother hastily made a cake and some scones, and warned the rest of us to be at our best behavior. The Turk, when he arrived, turned out to be a tall young man with meticulously waved hair and a flashy smile that managed to convey the minimum of humor with the maximum of condescension. He had all the sleek, smug self possession of a cat in season. He pressed Mother's hand to his lips as though he was conferring an honor on her and scattered the largest of his smile for the rest of us. Mother, feeling the hackles of the family rising, threw herself desperately into the breach. Lovely having you. Wanted so often. Never seems time, you know. Days simply fly past. Margot's told us so much about you. Do have a scone, she said breathlessly, smiling with dazzling charm and handing him a piece of cake. So kind, murmured the Turk, leaving us in some doubt as to whether he was referring to us or himself. There was a pause. He's on holiday here, announced Margot suddenly, as though it was something quite unique. Really, said Larry waspishly, meaning mischievously. On holiday? Amazing. I had a holiday once, said Leslie, indistinctly through a mouthful of cake. Remember it clearly. Mother rattled the tea things nervously and glared at them. Sugar? She inquired fruitily. Sugar in your tea? Oh, thank you, yes. There was another short silence during which we all sat and watched Mother pouring out the tea and searching her mind desperately for a topic of conversation. At length, the Turk turned to Larry. You write, I believe, he said, with a complete lack of interest. Larry's eyes glittered. Mother, seeing the danger signs, rushed in quickly before he could reply. Yes, yes, she smiled. He writes away day after day, always tapping at the typewriter. I always feel that I could write superbly if I tried, remarked the Turk. Really, said Mother. Yes, well, it is a gift. I suppose, like so many things. He swims well, remarked Margot, and he goes out terribly far. I have no fear, said the Turk modestly. I'm a superb swimmer, so I have no fear. When I ride the horse, I have no fear, for I ride superbly. I can sail the boat magnificently in the typhoon without fear. He sipped his tea delicately, regarding our awestruck faces with approval. You see, he went on, in case we had missed the point. You see, I'm not a fearful man. The result of the tea party was that the next day Margot received a note from the Turk asking her if she would accompany him to the
Hello.
cinema that evening. Do you think I ought to go? She asked Mother. If you want to, dear, said Mother, and she
Okay.
added, but tell him I'm coming too. That should be a jolly evening for you, remarked Larry. Oh, Mother, you can't, protested Margot. He'll think
Yes,
it's nonsense, dear, said Mother vaguely.
yes,
Turks
please.
to chaperons and things. Look at their harems. Now, chaperon means somebody who goes along with, someone who's going to take care of. Okay. So that evening, Mother and Margot, dressed becomingly, made their way down the hill to meet the Turk. The only cinema was an open air one in the town, and we calculated that the show would be over by 10 at the latest. Larry, Leslie, and I waited eagerly for their return. At 1:30 in the morning, Margot and Mother, in the last stages of exhaustion, crept into the villa and sank into the chairs. Oh, so you have come back, said Larry. We thought you had flown with him. We imagined you galloping about Constantinople on, on camels, your yashmarks rippling seductively in the breeze. We've had the most awful evening, said Mother, easing her shoes off. Really awful. What happened? Asked Leslie. Well, to begin with, he stank of the most frightful perfume, said Margot, and that put me off straight away. We went in the cheapest seats, so close to the screen that I got a headache, said Mother, and simply cramped together like sardines. It was so oppressive, I couldn't breathe. And then, to crown it all, I got a flea. It was nothing to laugh at, Larry. Really, I didn't know what to do. The blessed thing got inside my corsets and I could feel it running about. I couldn't very well scratch, it would have looked so peculiar. I had to keep pressing myself against the seat. I think he noticed, though. He kept giving me funny looks from the corner of his eye. Then, in the interval, he went out and came back with some of that horrible, sickly Turkish delight. And before long, we were all covered with white sugar, and I had a dreadful thirst. In the second interval, he went out and came back with flowers. I ask you, dear, flowers in the middle of the cinema? That's Margot's bouquet on the table. Mother pointed to a massive bunch of spring flowers tied up in a tangle of colored ribbons. She delved into her bag and produced a minute bunch of violets that looked as though they had been trodden by an exceptionally hefty horse. This, she said, was for me. But the worst part was coming home, said Margot. A dreadful journey, Mother agreed. When we came out of the cinema, I thought we were going to get a car. But no, he hustled us into a cab, and a very smelly one at that. Really, I think he must be mental to try and come all that way in a cab. Anyway, it took us hours and hours because the poor horse was tired, and I was sitting there trying to be polite, dying to scratch myself and longing for a drink. All the fool could do was to sit there grinning at Margot and singing Turkish love songs. I could have cheerfully hit him. I thought we were never going to get back. We couldn't even get rid of him at the bottom of the hill. He insisted on coming up with us, armed with a huge stick, because he said the forests were full of serpents at this time of the year. I was so glad to see the back of him. I'm afraid you'll just have to choose your boyfriends more carefully in future, Margot. I can't go through that sort of thing again. I was terrified he'd come right up to the door and we'd have to ask him in. I thought we'd never get away. You obviously didn't make yourself fearful enough, said Larry. For Leslie, the coming of the spring meant the soft pipe of wings as the turtle doves and wood pigeons arrived, and the sudden flash and scuttle of hair among the myrtles. So, after visiting numerous gun shops and after much technical argument, he returned to the villa one day, proudly carrying a double barreled shotgun. His first action was to take to his room, strip it down, and clean it, while I stood and watched, fascinated by the gleaming barrels and stock, sniffing rapturously at the rich, heavy scent of the gun oil. Isn't she a beauty? He groaned, more to himself than to me, his vivid blue eyes shining. Isn't she a honey? Tenderly, he ran his hands over the silken shape of the weapon. Then he whipped it suddenly to his shoulder and followed an imaginary flock of birds across the ceiling of the room. Pow, pow, he intoned, jerking the gun against his shoulder. A left and a right and down they come. Because he was a hunter, he liked to go hunting, so he was pretending to hunt birds. He gave the gun a final rub with the oily rag and set it carefully in the corner of the room by his bed. We'll have a try at some turtle doves tomorrow, shall we? He continued, splitting open a packet and spilling scarlet shells onto the bed. They start coming over about 6. Hill across the valley is a good place. So at dawn, he and I hurried through the hunched and misty olive up the valley where the myrtles were wet and squeaky with dew, and on to the top of the little hill. We stood waist deep among the vines, waiting for the light to strengthen and for the birds to start flighting. That means flying. Suddenly, the pale morning sky was flecked with dark specks, moving as swiftly as arrows. And as we could hear the quick wheep of wings, Leslie waited, standing stockily with legs apart, gun stock resting on his hip, his eyes intense and gleaming, following the birds. Nearer and nearer they flew until it seemed that they must fly past us and be lost in the silvery, trembling olive tops behind. At the very last moment, the gun leapt smoothly to his shoulder. The beetle shiny barrels lifted their mouths to the sky. The gun jerked as the report echoed briefly like the crack of a great branch in a still forest. The turtle dove, 1 minute so swift and intent in its flight, now fell languidly to earth, followed by a swirl of soft, cinnamon colored Uh, next page, ma'am. Cinnamon colored feathers. When 5 doves hung from his belt, limp, bloodstained, with demurely closed eyes, he lit a cigarette, puffed his hat brim down over his eyes, and cuddled the gun under his arm. Come on, he said. We've got enough. Let's give the poor devils a rest. We returned through the sun striped olive groves where the chaffinches were pinking like 100 tiny coins among the leaves. Yanni the shepherd was driving his herd of goats out to graze. His brown face, with its great sweep of nicotine stained mustache, wrinkled into a smile. A gnarled hand appeared from the heavy folds of his sheepskin cloak and was raised in salute. Chariot, he called in his deep voice, the beautiful Greek greeting. Charite, kai rio. Be happy. The goats poured among the olives, uttering stammering cries to each other. The leader's bell clonking rhythmically. The chaffinches tinkled excitedly. A robin puffed out his chest like a tangerine among the myrtles and gave a tickle of song. The island was drenched with dew radiant, with early morning sun full of stirring life. Be happy. How could one be anything else in such a season? So that was the end of that particular chapter on spring. And Gerald has given us an idea of how all his siblings, his elder two brothers and his sister, celebrated that particular spring. And he's given us an idea of the way this island of Corfu was beautifully covered with flowers and trees and creatures, right? So if there are any questions from any one of you, anything that you would like to ask, anything that you would like to say, please do so.
Ma'am, as you just said, we have spring around here. So maybe you want to talk and ask children what are they noticing around them
Absolutely.
since spring is here.
Yeah. So, children, tell me, how many of you have noticed something different in the atmosphere ever since this month of spring started? It's known as Basant in North India, right? Basant Kal. It's a season of new flowers, new trees. Tell me what new flowers are blooming right now. Does anyone know? Would anyone like to share? Yeah. Come on, children, take a chance. What flowers can you see in
Ma'am, rose.
rose? Okay, good. Anybody else?
Marigold.
Marigold. Okay, not so much marigold, but there would be other flowers that you see right now. You can even give us the Hindi names if you know them. Okay.
Water lily.
Water lilies. Have you seen Easter lilies, children? This is the season for Easter lilies. How many of you know what is Easter lily and do you know what is Easter? Okay, so we'll talk about that later, but this is the month. Okay, in the month of April, we will have Easter, and this is the time, this is the season when these lilies bloom, and they're called Easter lilies, right? And they're quite big, like that, red and white, and pink in color. So they're Easter lilies that bloom in this season. But what other flowers do we see? Indian flowers also. A lot of Indian flowers bloom in this season. Can anyone tell me?
Lotus.
Lotus. Do we see them commonly around our houses, children? Let us talk about flowers that we see around us commonly on in our gardens, on the street side, anything that you see. What about hibiscus? Has anyone seen hibiscus flower? A lot of hibiscus flowers bloom in this season.
No,
Any other?
ma'am.
No? I'm sure you've seen it, but you don't know the name, right? Hibiscus is very common in this season, and so are other flowers. I will give you some Indian names. Maybe you will recognize them. Do you know a flower called Chandni? It's a white small flower, a five-petaled small flower called Chandni,
Ma'am,
which
sunflower.
sunflowers, yes. Yes.
Ma'am, lotus.
Pardon me? Say it again.
Champak.
Champak.
Ma'am, chameli.
Chameli doesn't really bloom now. It'll just about start. It'll take a little more time. But you do have other flowers like the pansies, okay? Then the cinerera. A whole lot of flowers bloom in this season. All right. Also, have you noticed new leaves on trees? Have you noticed that there are new leaves on the trees? Some of the trees have shed their old leaves and new leaves have come on the trees. Notice that. Has anyone noticed the new leaves on the trees? And have you noticed the way bougainvillea flowers are blooming in this season? The hotter it gets, the brighter the bougainvillea becomes. Right? They start blooming now, and one flower which blooms right through the summer and keeps the place colorful is the bougainvillea. Okay? Now, if you don't know what the bougainvillea is, watch out for it. Try and look out to see what colors of bougainvillea you can see. It grows everywhere in North India. So it's a very common flower to be seen. Okay. Would anyone like to share anything else that you have just found from all the reading that we did this morning? Is there any one of you who wants to tell us about what you felt this whole story was about? Why was Gerald talking about his family? Why is it important for him to include that in the in his book? Yes, Sanaya, would you like to answer? Did you understand what we read? You can unmute yourself, please. Sanaya, we can't hear you because your mic is switched off. So just switch on your mic, unmute yourself, and then speak.
Ma'am,
Yes.
we will learn about flowers
Hmm.
and spring.
Okay. So I think, did you all come to know how many brothers does Gerald have? Since most of you are new in this session, let me ask you that question. How many brothers and what are the names of his brothers? Who can tell me that? Does anybody remember how many brothers and what are their names? Shrishti, you want to tell us?
Ma'am, two.
Two, good. And do you remember their names? Could you get their names? What were the names of his two brothers? Who knows the names?
Mary. Mary or Mary.
Somebody is saying it, but say it loudly for everyone to hear. Yeah? Someone just said, mumbled it. Can you say it loud?
Ma'am,
Yeah? Larry?
Larry and Mary.
No. Larry and Leslie were his brothers, and Margot, which is short for Margaret, was his sister. Okay? Now, will you remember? Margaret is his sister, and Larry and Leslie are his two brothers. Leslie is the person who likes to go hunting and he had just bought a gun. That is what we read about. And Larry, his oldest brother, was a writer. Okay, he came to Corfu Island because he wanted a quiet place where he can sit and write. And of course, his mother stayed with them and she looked after the entire family. And in spring, mother was very happy. What was the reason of mother's happiness? Can anyone tell me? Did you understand why mother was so happy in the spring? What did she like doing? And what became easy for her to do? Who's going to answer? What did mother do? Something that we read about. Yeah? Jugjeev sir, maybe we should discuss that so that they can understand, or Manisha ma'am can come in here. So,
Yeah,
mother,
sure.
yeah,
I mean, even what's happening around here, right? I mean, we also seeing it on our tables, right? The,
yes,
the what we eat is also starting to change.
absolutely. Yeah. So mother was very, very happy because she got to cook some very exotic food. She was happy because whatever she needed to cook, she could see such exotic fruits and vegetables and things that were in the market were fresher than ever. They were better than ever. So she was experimenting with her food and she was cooking delicious food and bringing it to the table. And her older son, Larry, we just read about him overeating and getting an upset stomach, and he tried to treat himself by taking a lot of soda so that he would be able to eat more food. And we also read about Margaret and the friend she had made and what a horrible experience they had with him. So these were just additional information we got about the family. And the reason why Gerald has included all this in the book is to add something, some variety, because if he kept on talking about the creatures in the island, then the book would become very boring. So he has tried to make it very natural and also add incidents with people and talk about his own funny family. And if you look at the name of the book, it says My Family and Other Animals. Okay, in a way, the title is also suggesting that the members of his family, like all of us, are kind of animals only, right? So that is what we need to remember as we read the book. I'm intentionally not starting the next chapter because we just have a few minutes left, but we would like to take any kind of questions that you might have, children, or any reflections. And if you can, I would like all of you to now, when when you have freer time, please look around, be a little more watchful and observant, and try to see what are the different flowers that are growing around you, what are the trees which have new leaves, and you can ask some adults to tell you the names of these flowers, the names of these trees. And maybe if you are good at drawing, you could even draw the leaves, or you can do a little bit of leaf rubbing. You know what is leaf rubbing? Some of you may have done it in school. You can put a leaf under a paper and take a pencil or a crayon and just rub over that. So the shape of the leaf with all the lines on the leaf and everything will come on your paper, and you can name it. So if you're doing neem leaves, then you can write there neem leaves. Or if you're taking a people leaf, you can take a people leaf and do a little rubbing and write people leaf. And some of you can learn even to press flowers. So if you have flowers which have just fallen off the tree, you can take it while it is still fresh and put it between pages of a book and put something heavy on it, so it slowly dries inside it, and then you can press it and keep it. You can preserve it that way, right? So just three, how many interesting things you can do. You can Google and find out what you can do with pressed flowers. All right? Yeah, we would like
Okay.
some reflections on this. Okay. I think the chapter may have been slightly more difficult for the newcomers, but that's okay. We learn to understand difficult things, and slowly and steadily we will start understanding more and more as we go along the book. Right?
Yes, yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Anything that children want to share? Any adults in this group want to share anything? I'm constantly saying children because the faces that I can see are only those of children. So if there's anybody who wants to share what they felt about this morning session, please, we have 5 more minutes. You can do that before we go into the next reading session. No? Okay. We like you to speak, so it'll be nice for you to, to have a conversation with us. So since it's the first time for many of you, um,
Boy,
yeah, you can,
ma'am, go up with the answer.
yes, tell me, what answer did you get?
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, you want to say something? What's your name? It says here Prayag Pihu. So, who is this person? Can you speak to us? Okay, I don't think he wants to say anything right now. All right, it doesn't matter, but just understand that the more you ask questions, the more you talk to us, the more fun you will have, and the more you will learn from us. Okay, so let's do that and get used to this session of conversation also, along with all our reading. So if some of our regular readers had been there, it would have helped us more. But I think some of them have taken a little break because their exams may have just got over.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, right. I think
Thank
we
you.
stop with this session here, and Jugjeev sir is going to now take you on with Manisha ma'am for the next part of the session. Thank you
Sure.
so much,
Thank
everybody.
you. Thank you, Vrinda ma'am. Manisha, if you can just open the Joy of Learning Diaries, maybe you want to look at some of the reflections.
I'll do that. Just give me a minute.
Yeah, I think Myra's here, so maybe I don't know who else will want to read. So anybody who wants to read, we're happy if you can read. Uh, as Manisha ma'am explained earlier, we have Joy of Learning Diaries where whatever your reflections are, we put uh, on the joy in the Joy of Learning Diaries, and then we try and read some of your reflections when we meet the following Sunday. So now these are some reflections that have come from the last Sunday's session, right? And these are from I think Sunbeam Balya, yeah, Sunbeam School Balya. Uh, I don't know. I don't think Akansha is here today. Anybody else would like to read?
Sir, may
Yeah, please go ahead, Myra.
In today's session, we read a part of What Are You Looking For is in the Library by Michiko Ayoma. The chapter introduced by Mr. Nasada, a colorful and confident businessman who manages different ventures in his own unique way. The story then focuses on Rio, who became worried after an incident with the president's daughter at his office. Because of this tension, he later argued with his girlfriend Hina and criticized the things that made her happy online. During the discussion, Jugjeev sir and the participants talked about what we would have done if we were in Rio's place. It made me realize how stress from one situation can easily affect our behavior with the people close to us. In the Hindi session, we read The Whistling Schoolboy by Ruskin Bond, which had a lighter and humorous tone. The story described a teacher who suddenly disappeared, leading everyone to believe that a leopard might have taken him away. However, when he returned, he refused to admit this and simply said that his pajama had torn because it was hanging somewhere. When a curious child asked how it happened, the teacher became annoyed and avoided explaining it. This story highlighted the natural curiosity of children and how adults sometimes try to hide embarrassing situations. Together, both reading gave an interesting view of human behavior in different situations.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, anybody else wants to read what Roshni has written? Any volunteer? Nobody? Nobody is volunteering. Go for it, Myra.
Okay, sir. In today's session with Jugjeev sir and Manisha ma'am, we read the story "What Are You Looking For is in the Library" by Michiko Ayoma. I learned that work stress can affect a person's emotions and relationships. Rio's behavior shows that when someone is worried or under pressure, they may react badly or unintentionally hurt people close to them. His frustration from the office affected the way he spoke to Hina at home. This made me realize that in such situations, it's important to stay calm, think before reacting, and communicate properly instead of letting stress affect others. The reading also showed how one person's mood can influence the people around them. Rio's stress from work turned into irritation at home and led to an argument with Hina. During the session, Jagjeev sir and other students discussed how such situation happen in real life too. Thinking about what we would do in Rio's place made the discussion more interesting and helped us understand the lesson better. Later, Manisha ma'am showed us a picture through which we learned about indoor and outdoor education. We understood that education is an open environment, helps in overall development of child's mind, body and character. Therefore, learning in nature is more meaningful and enjoyable for students. While reading the story, we also discussed stress eating. Stress eating may give temporary comfort, but healthy activities like exercise, talking to someone, or relaxing are better ways to manage stress. The story ended ironically.
Thank you. Okay, last one from Talat. Anybody volunteering to read?
In today's session, we first shared our own written reflections and then interacted with Mr. Jagjeev Singh sir and his thoughtful ideas. He read the story "What You Are Looking For Is in the Library." It was an amazing and knowledgeable story. We read it with great interest. One thing that I like was most about the Good School Alliance is that every participant, along with all the members, participates enthusiastically and gives their best to make this class informative. Many students were new to this wonderful session and were not familiar with the class. Manisha ma'am explained a lot about the class to them. In other session, we had Manisha ma'am, who always takes the initiative for Hindi reading. We started with a quiz and then read a story about by Ruskin Bond. This was also a very interesting and informative session. I thank every member of the Good School Alliance for taking the initiative for this reading class. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Myra. So, in the Joy Learning Diaries, we also have this link which will take you. Just press on it, Manisha. It'll take you to YouTube where you know the recording of the session is there, right? So if you missed a session, you can easily go and see what happened, right? And sometimes, if your story is going on and you miss a piece of it, this is your way to catch up. So thank you. Thanks, Myra. Thanks, Manisha. I think if anybody has any questions on what we do in the Good School Alliance, this is a good time to ask. Otherwise, we'll get on to Manisha's session.
Any questions? All right. So whenever we have a session, it's like we do like to brief what is going on what is going to happen in the next week and what has happened in the week before, so that you all understand how we are moving forward. So in my book reading, we are reading this book. Is the name visible? This is Ruskin Bond's book,
Yes.
The Whistling Schoolboy and अन्य कहानियां. ये बुक, ये जो किताब है, ये इंग्लिश एंड हिंदी दोनों में अवेलेबल है. बट चूंकि ऑलरेडी हम 2 बुक्स पढ़ रहे हैं जो इंग्लिश में, तो वी थॉट कि एक बुक हिंदी में भी होनी चाहिए. इस बुक के चैप्टर देवदार के घने जंगल के बीच में स्कूल को हम पढ़ रहे हैं. अभी तक हम 3 चैप्टर्स इस कहानी के पढ़ चुके हैं और आज मैं चौथा चैप्टर पढ़ना चाहूंगी. तो अभी तक इस किताब में, इस कहानी में ये हुआ है कि ये सारी ही कहानियां जो कि
ओके मैं
रस्किन बॉन्ड ने लिखी है, ये आपके ज्यादातर नेचर से रिलेट करती है. सो नेचर में क्या हो रहा है, और बहुत ही खास बात इन कहानियों में होती है कि नेचर के अलावा ये आपस के भाईचारे को भी दर्शाता है. कैसे एक दूसरे के साथ बॉन्डिंग होनी चाहिए और किस तरीके से लोग एक दूसरे को पसंद करते हैं और हेल्प करते हैं. इस चैप्टर में अभी तक जो दर्शाया गया है वो बच्चे की कहानियां हैं. सब बच्चे स्कूल जाते हैं और अपने खाली टाइम में एक दूसरे के साथ खेलते भी हैं. बच्चों का सबसे ज्यादा आपस में बहुत प्यार रहता है और वो डेडिकेटेड रहते हैं एक चीज के लिए, और वो है एजुकेशन. उन्होंने कभी भी ट्रेन में, एयरप्लेन में, यहाँ तक कि बसेस में भी सफर नहीं किया है. वो पैदल ही अपने घर से स्कूल जाते हैं, जिसका रास्ता भी काफी खराब होता है. जंगल होने के कारण, जंगल के बीच में स्कूल होने के कारण क्या होता है कि कई बार उन्हें कुछ परेशानियों का भी सामना करना पड़ता है. जैसे कि इस कहानी में बताया गया कि एक लेपर्ड आ गया और आकर के कहानी, मतलब लोगों को लगा कि टीचर को उठा के ले गया, जबकि वो टीचर को उठा के नहीं लेके गया था. टीचर ऐसे ही वॉक करने गए थे. छोटी छोटी बातें जिसमें हंसी भी आती है, प्यार भी आता है, और भी चीजें होती है. तो शॉर्ट में आपको पिछली कहानी में बता रही हूँ. ये सारे बच्चे एक जंगल के पास रहते थे और रोज रास्ता क्रॉस करते थे अपने स्कूल जाने के लिए. अब आगे देखते हैं कि छोटे छोटे प्यार, मोहब्बत और क्यूरियोसिटी के कारण बच्चे कहाँ तक पहुंचते हैं, कैसे करते हैं. अभी तक की हमारी किताबें स्क्रीन शेयर हुई हैं, क्योंकि उसकी सॉफ्ट कॉपीज अवेलेबल है. इस पर्टिकुलर बुक की सॉफ्ट कॉपी अवेलेबल नहीं है, इसलिए मैं स्क्रीन शेयर नहीं कर पाऊंगी. तो मैं सबसे गुजारिश करूंगी कि बीच में नहीं बोलें, क्योंकि उसमें थोड़ी सी डिस्टरबेंसेस होती है. अगर आप कुछ पूछना चाह रहे हैं या कुछ बोलना चाह रहे हैं तो प्लीज अपने हाथ रेज करिए, एंड हम आपको बताएंगे कि कब आपको बोलना है. अपनी क्यूरियोसिटी को आप, या क्वेश्चंस को आप चैट बॉक्स में भी लिख सकते हैं, जिस तरीके से हम उसके आंसर दे पाए. तो चलिए चैप्टर को स्टार्ट करते हैं. श्रीमान मणि साही से परेशान थे. वे रात में उनके बगीचे में आ जाते थे और आलू को खोद देते थे और खा जाते थे, जबकि अप्रैल का सुहाना मौसम आ गया था. इसके चलते उनके बेडरूम की खिड़कियां खुली रहती, जिससे वो उन साही की सब्जियों से मौज लेते हुए सुना करते थे, जिनको उन्होंने उगाने में कड़ी मेहनत की थी. वे शाही कतर कतर करके सबसे बड़े और रसदार आलूओं को अपने तेज दांतों से कुतरते थे. श्री मणि को ऐसा लगता था कि मानो वे उनसे ही शरीर को काट रहे हों. और फिर जब शाही उन स्वस्थ पत्तों से भरे पौधे को, जड़ों को उखाड़ने में मशगूल होते थे, तो श्रीमान मणि इन सब को देखकर गुस्से से पागल होकर कांपने लगते थे और बोल उठते, किसी भी चीज की हद होती है. क्या आप में से किसी के साथ ऐसा हुआ है कि आपने बहुत ही प्यार से और बहुत ही मेहनत से कुछ बनाया और किसी और ने आकर के उसको खराब कर दिया? कैसा लगता होगा? ऐसा कभी हुआ है आपके साथ? आपकी क्या फीलिंग्स थी? गुस्सा आया, या लगा कि चलो हम दोबारा ये काम कर लेंगे और दोबारा बना लेंगे, या गुस्से के बाद आपने वो काम को दोबारा किया ही नहीं और उसको वैसे ही छोड़ दिया? खराब करा किसी ने आपका काम का, होमवर्क, क्लास वर्क, कोई ड्राइंग, कोई आर्ट प्रोजेक्ट? हुआ है ऐसा स्कूल में कभी, या घर पे, ट्यूशन के समय? क्या या फिर आपकी किसी ने फेवरेट चीजें ले ली और ले करके वापस नहीं करी, आपसे बिना पूछे ली? ऐसा कभी हुआ? नहीं हुआ किसी के भी साथ? सर आपके साथ हुआ कभी ऐसा?
नहीं नहीं, आई कांट रिमेम्बर कि ऐसे मैंने कुछ बनाया हुआ और किसी ने खराब कर दिया हो, मतलब।
ओके। तो चूंकि ये जंगल और जानवरों की बात है तो जानवर आके मेहनत पे पानी फेर देते हैं। सर जानवर ही नहीं, नेचुरल डिजास्टर्स भी होते हैं जिसके कारण भी चीजें काफी खराब हो जाती है। अभी जैसे 2-3 दिन से बारिशें चल रही हैं, तो मैंने सुना लोगों को बोलते हुए कि हमारी फसल खराब हो गई बारिश के कारण। सो एक्सेस ऑफ एवरीथिंग एंड मे बी आउट ऑफ सीजन कोई चीज होती है तो भी वो खराबी ही लाती है। और बारिश के कारण आजकल आप चूंकि देख ही रहे होंगे कि ड्रेनेज वगैरह बहुत से सिटीज में ठीक नहीं होते, तो पानी नहीं जा पाता। एंड कचरा वगैरह के चक्कर में रास्ते में भी बहुत गंदगी आ जाती है। युवराज कहना चाह रहे हैं? यस मैम, वंस माय कजिन मेड अ क्रॉस एंड विद मार्कर ऑन माय स्केच एंड ड्राइंग बुक। हाँ, तो ये तो गलत बात है। कजिन ने आपका करा। कई बार घर में छोटे बच्चे होते हैं, अपने बड़े भाई बहन की किताबों में कुछ ना कुछ स्क्रिबल करके खराब कर देते हैं। तो छोटी सी छोटी चीजें भी है, इरेजर छुपा दिया, स्टेशनरी छुपा दी, ये सब छोटी छोटी हरकतें तो होती रहती है जो कई बार हमें अपसेट भी करती है, कई बार हमारे चेहरे पे स्माइल भी लाते हैं। चलिए आगे चैप्टर को बढ़ाते हैं। जी हाँ, श्रीमान मणि को साइयों से काफी नफरत थी। उन्होंने उनके विनाश और पृथ्वी से लुप्त हो जाने की प्रार्थना करी, लेकिन तुरंत उनके दोस्तों ने उन्हें बताया भगवान ने साही की रक्षा भी की, और वैसे भी इस प्राणी को कभी देख भी नहीं सकते या फिर पकड़ नहीं सकते, क्योंकि ये जानवर पूरी तरीके से रात्रिचर होते हैं। रात्रिचर का मतलब कोई बता पाएगा क्या होता है? आउल कौन सा एनिमल है? आउल के लिए क्या स्पेशल है? आउल को भी रात्रिचर कहते हैं। रात्रिचर वो होते हैं जो सिर्फ रात को ही होते हैं, दिन के समय नहीं दिखाई पड़ते। श्रीमान मणि अपने एक हाथ में टॉर्च और दूसरे में मोटी छड़ी लेकर हर रोज रात बिस्तर से उठते थे, लेकिन फिर जैसे ही वो बगीचे में कदम रखते। नाइट विजन? बेटा नाइट विजन अलग हो गया, एंड रात्रिचर मीन्स जो सिर्फ रात को ही अपने काम के लिए आगे बढ़ते हैं। श्रीमान मणि अपने एक हाथ में टॉर्च और दूसरे में मोटी छड़ी लेकर हर रोज रात बिस्तर से उठते थे, लेकिन फिर जैसे ही वो बगीचे में कदम रखते थे, उसी वक्त खनखनाहट और खुदाई बंद हो जाती थी, और इस तरह उनका स्वागत परेशान कर देने वाली खामोशी के साथ होता था। इधर श्रीमान मणि अंधेरे में इधर उधर टटोलते रहे, छड़ी को बुरी तरह घुमाते रहे, लेकिन इन सब के बावजूद भी उन्हें कोई साही न तो दिखाई ही देता और न सुनाई ही देता। लेकिन जैसे ही वो अपने बिस्तर पर वापस जाते, फिर से कतर कतर की आवाजें आना शुरू हो जाती थी। तो एनिमल्स में भी इंस्टिंक्ट है, एंड वो इंस्टिंक्ट उनको समझ में आ जाता है कि डेंजर आने वाला है या कोई प्रॉब्लम आने वाली है, तो वो छुप जाते थे। और जैसे ही उन्हें पता चलता था कि अब वो सेफ मोड में आ गए, वो वापस निकल के अपना काम करते थे। श्रीमान मणि थके हुए और बेतरकीब तरीके से कक्षा में प्रवेश करते थे। उनकी आंखों के नीचे घेरे और उनके चेहरे पर हमेशा उदास बनी रहने वाली झुंझलाहट मौजूद रहती थी। उनके विद्यार्थियों को उनके दुख का कारण जानने में कुछ वक्त जरूर लगा, लेकिन
हेलो।
जब उन्होंने इसका बेटा बीच में मत बोलिए। अगर आपको कुछ बातें करनी है, कुछ पूछना है, तो प्लीज हाथ रेस करिए या फिर क्वेश्चन या आपकी बातें अपने चैट बॉक्स में लिखिए। लेकिन अब उन्होंने इसका पता लगा लिया तो उन्हें अपने शिक्षक की इस हालत पर बहुत दुख हुआ। और फिर क्या था, वे अपने शिक्षक के आलू को साही से बचाने के लिए तरीके और उपायों पर चर्चा करने लगे। प्रकाश वह लड़का था जो खाई या पानी से भरा खड्डा बनाने का विचार लेकर आता था। उन्होंने ज्ञानी बनते हुए कहा, साही को पानी पसंद नहीं है। एक दोस्त ने पूछा, तुम्हें कैसे पता है? किसी पर एक पानी फेंक कर तो देख लो, वो कैसे भागता है। उन्हें अपने कलमों अर्थात क्विल को गीला करना पसंद नहीं है। वहां पर ऐसा कोई भी नहीं था जो प्रकाश के इस सिद्धांत को खारिज कर सके। और फिर क्या था, कक्षा में खड्डे बनाने के सुझाव को सहमति हासिल हो गई। ये इसलिए भी था क्योंकि इसका अर्थ था कि दिन के वक्त खड्डे को बनाने के लिए ज्यादा वक्त स्कूल से गोल रहना था। हेडमास्टर साहब ने स्वीकृति देते हुए कहा, मणि जी को खुश करने के लिए यह स्वीकार है। और फिर क्या था, स्कूल के बाकी बच्चे, कक्षा 5 के बच्चे को गांव के हर घर में इकट्ठा किया गया। कुदाल और फावड़े से लैस होकर जाते हुए ईर्ष्या से देखा करते थे। उन सभी ने श्रीमान मणि के आलू के खेत में अपनी जगह ले ली थी और फिर खड्डा खोदना शुरू कर दिया। शाम होने पर खड्डे बनकर तैयार हो गए थे, लेकिन खड्डे अभी सूखे हुए थे और साही उस रात फिर से खेल में घुसा और उन सब ने शानदार दावत करी। तो आपके पास जब कोई प्रॉब्लम होती है तो आप उसका सॉल्व कैसे करते हैं? जब भी आपके स्कूल में या आप आसपास अपने नेबरहुड में कोई प्रॉब्लम देखते हैं तो आप लोग मिलजुल के उसका सामना करते हैं, उसको सॉल्व करते हैं? या ऐसे सिचुएशन पे अगर आप होते कि जहां पे आपकी किसी टीचर कि घर पे या उनके खेतों में अगर वो खेती बाड़ी करते हैं, ऐसी कोई प्रॉब्लम हुई तो आप क्या सोचते हैं, क्या करना चाहिए? ये बच्चे क्या सही कर रहे थे, स्कूल से बाहर निकल करके अपना टाइम स्पेंड कर रहे थे खड्डे खोदने के लिए? वॉज इट राइट, या आपको लगता है कि कुछ और भी किया जा सकता था?
यस मैम।
क्या कर सकते हैं हम? अच्छा, आप लोगों ने कभी महसूस किया कि आपके घरों में कभी चूहे, रैट वगैरह आए हैं? देखा आप लोगों ने रियल लाइफ में?
यस मैम। यस
तो
यस
क्या
मैम।
करते हैं आपके पेरेंट्स?
मैम, मैम उन्हें भगाते हैं।
कैसे?
मैम, चूहे का वो पिंजरा।
यस। तो चूहे के पिंजरे में क्या करते हैं वो?
खाना रखते हैं, फिर चूहा आता है, फिर उसमें फंस जाता है।
तो हम
वो
ये
बंद हो
काम
जाता है।
खेतों में भी कर सकते हैं क्या, कि साही उसमें आके पकड़ में आ जाए, खड्डे में खोद के पानी डालने की जगह बहुत सारे पिंजरे लगाएं, तो पॉसिबल है क्या?
मैम नो। मैम उनकी जगह ना पेस्टिसाइड्स छिड़के जाते हैं।
बेटा, पेस्टिसाइड्स तो आपके जो मतलब छोटे मोटे कीड़े मकोड़े होते हैं खेतों में, उसके लिए होते हैं। उससे साही भाग जाएगी क्या? जिस एनिमल की बात हो रही है यहाँ पे साही की, वो भाग जाएगी?
नो मैम।
तो क्या करना चाहिए फिर, क्या
मैम
कर सकते हैं?
स्केयर क्रो।
हम्म।
स्केयर क्रो।
अच्छा, स्केरक्रो। स्केरक्रो से कौन
यस
भागेगा?
मैम।
स्केरक्रो से कौन भागेगा? साही भागेगी कि कोई और भागेगा?
क्रो।
स्केरक्रो होता क्या है?
स्केयर क्रो मतलब एक वो बना होता है लकड़ी का डंस।
हाँ, तो वो किसको भगाने के लिए खेतों में रखते हैं?
क्रो के। क्रो के लिए।
बर्ड्स के लिए? बर्ड्स के लिए?
यस मैम।
वेरी वेरी गुड। तो बर्ड्स को भगाने के लिए स्केरक्रो रखते हैं, जैसे कि बर्ड्स को लगे कि खेतों में कोई आदमी खड़ा है और वो अनाज को नुकसान नहीं करे। बट यहाँ बात हो रही है साही की। साही भी आपका एक चूहे के जैसा ही कोई चीज है, कोई एनिमल है छोटा, जो आपकी फसलों को खा लेते हैं। तो उसके लिए क्या करना चाहिए? पिंजरा लगा सकते हैं क्या?
हम लगा सकते हैं।
चलिए, वेरी गुड। आगे देखिए, खड्डे में
लगा
पानी
सकते हैं।
भरने से क्या होता है? साही भागी कि उसने और नुकसान किया आलूओं को? शाम होने तक खड्डे बनकर तैयार हो गए थे, लेकिन खड्डे अभी सूखे हुए थे और साही उस रात फिर से खेत में घुसा और उन सब ने शानदार दावत उड़ाई। श्रीमान मणि ने नाखुश होकर कहा, इस रफ्तार से यदि उन्होंने खाए तो एक भी आलू खाने के लिए नहीं बचेगा। लेकिन अगले ही दिन प्रकाश और दूसरे लड़के लड़कियां गांव के पास से बहने वाली एक नदी की पानी की दिशा को मोड़ने में कामयाब हो गया। उन्हें इस बात से संतुष्टि हुई कि पानी आहिस्ता आहिस्ता उनके द्वारा बनाए गए खड्डों में भरना शुरू हो जाएगा। सभी
यस
लोग
मैम।
अच्छे मूड के साथ अपने घर चले गए। उधर रात में खड्डे पानी से भर जाने के बाद आलू के खेत में भरने लगे। इस तरीके
यस
से
मैम।
श्री श्रीमान इस तरीके से श्रीमान मणि ने खुद को अपने घर के अंदर फंसा हुआ पाया। रात होते होते खड्डे पानी से भरकर आलू के खेत में भरने लगा और श्रीमान मणि ने खुद को अपने घर के अंदर फंसा हुआ पाया। लेकिन प्रकाश और उसके दोस्तों की जीत हुई थी। उस रात साहियों ने आपको खेत से दूर ही रखा। इस घटना को घटे 1 महीना बीत चुका था। अब पहाड़ी की ढलानों पर जंगली बैंगन, डेजी और बटरकप जैसे फूल खिलने लग गए थे। बीना ने अपने स्कूल जाते हुए काफी मात्रा में इन फूलों को एक छोटी पोसी बनाने के लिए इकट्ठा किया। फूलों का गुच्छा एक पुराने शाही की बोतल में आसानी से फिट हो गया। मिस रुमोला ने मेज के बीच में एक छोटे से गुलदस्ते को देखकर बहुत खुश हुई। उन्होंने आश्चर्य से पूछा, इसे यहाँ किसने रखा है? बीना चुप रही और कक्षा के बाकी बच्चे भी अपनी हंसी को छिपाकर मुस्कुराते रहे। उसके बाद फिर वे बारी बारी से कक्षा के लिए फूल लेकर आते रहे। हम जब नेचर के पास होते हैं या फूल और पेड़ पौधों को देखते हैं तो हमें कई बार बहुत ही अच्छा महसूस होता है। जो नेचर के कलर्स है उससे हमें हमारे माइंड को एक अलग ही तरीके से रिलैक्सेशन फील होता है। तो आप
यस
में
मैम।
से भी बहुत से बच्चे नेचर के पास होंगे, आपके घर में भी काफी अच्छा गार्डन
यस
होगा
मैम।
या फिर सोसाइटी में भी होगा। तो कोई
यस
बताना
मैम।
चाहते हैं कि आप लोग क्या करते हैं उस गार्डन और फ्लावर्स का?
मैम बहुत अच्छे दिखते हैं।
हाँ, तो अभी वृंदा मैम भी के आपसे फ्लावर्स के बारे में ही पूछ रही थी। तो आप
यस मैम।
बताना चाहेंगे कि कौन कौन से 5 फ्लावर्स आपने अभी तक देखे हैं स्प्रिंग सीजन में?
मैम सनफ्लावर।
और कोई बताना चाहेगा कैसा लग रहा है आप लोग को?
ट्रेन को उसमें कौन से हैं?
चलिए, स्कूल से घर, घर से स्कूल जाने के इस लंबे सफर के दौरान बीना को पता चला कि अप्रैल महीना नई पत्तियों को लेकर आता है। वो वृक्ष के पत्ते ऊपर से चमकीले हरे और नीचे चांदी जैसे दिखाई देते थे। और फिर जब यह पत्ते हवा के झोंकों में लहराते थे तो वे हरी चांदनी के बादल जैसे दिखाई पड़ते थे। रास्ते में पुरानी सूखी और टूटी पत्तियां बिखरी हुआ करती थी। लोगों को उन्हें लात मारना बहुत पसंद था। सफेद तितलियों का झुंड नदी के उस पार उड़ रहा था। सोनू एक तितली को पकड़ने के लिए उसका पीछा कर रहा था कि तभी वह किसी काली और घिनौनी चीज से टकरा गया, फिर घास पर घिसटता गया। जब वह अपने पैरों पर खड़ा हुआ तो उसकी नजर एक छोटे जानवरों के अवशेषों पर पड़ी। बीना, प्रकाश, जल्दी आओ! उसने चिल्लाकर उन सभी को बुलाया। यह किसी भेड़ का हिस्सा था जिसे कुछ दिन पहले किसी बड़े जानवर ने मार दिया था। प्रकाश बोला, यह तो सिर्फ तेंदुआ ही हो सकता है। सोनू ने कहा, चलो फिर यहाँ से तुरंत निकल जाते हैं। वह अभी भी आसपास ही कहीं होगा। नहीं, अब इससे कुछ भी खाने के लिए नहीं बचा है। अब तक तो तेंदुआ कहीं और शिकार कर रहा होगा। शायद वह किसी और घाटी में चला गया होगा। सोनू ने कहा, मुझे तो अभी भी डर लग रहा है। यहाँ और भी तेंदुए हो सकते हैं। बीना ने उसका हाथ पकड़ लिया और बोली, तेंदुए इंसान पर हमला नहीं करते। प्रकाश ने जोर देकर कहा, वे इंसान पर भी हमला कर सकते हैं यदि उनके मुंह मनुष्य की खून का स्वाद लग जाए तो। बीना बोली, लेकिन इसने अभी तक किसी इंसान पर हमला नहीं किया है। हालांकि उसे खुद की बात पर पूरी तरह यकीन नहीं था। क्या ऐसी अफवाहें नहीं थी कि तेंदुए ने बांध के पास काम कर रहे कुछ श्रमिकों पर हमला नहीं किया था? लेकिन वह नहीं चाहती थी कि सोनू ये सुनकर डरे।
हाँ, आई थिंक मनीषा मैम का कनेक्शन कट गया है, थोड़ा वेट करते हैं और रिजॉइन करेंगे। हाँ, आपको क्या लगता है, तेंदुआ अपने आप आदमियों को अट्रैक्ट करता है, नहीं करता है? आपको क्या लगता है? लेपर्ड और आदमी का क्या रिलेशनशिप कैसा है? अगर आपको कोई लेपर्ड देखेगा, क्या करेगा?
मैम वो सर वो मारेगा।
मारेगा? मेरे को लगता है उसको भी डर लगता है, वो भागेगा, उसको भी आपसे डर लगेगा। और अगर आपने आगे पीछे कुछ किया हो तब। एक मिनट, मनीषा मैम का फोन आ रहा है। हाँ जी मनीषा। हाँ, तो उनका वो कट गया था, शी इज जस्ट ट्राइंग टू गेट ऑन। तो ये आजकल आपने देखा होगा कि बहुत ये पेपर में आता है कि लेपर्ड यहाँ पे आ गया, लेपर्ड वहां पे आ गया। इनफैक्ट कल मैं एक दोस्त के घर गया था, और वो दिल्ली के बस कोने में रहता है जहाँ के उसके पास, उसके आगे पीछे जंगल है। तो उसने दिखाया था कि उसके घर के बाहर सीसीटीवी कैमरा लगा हुआ है, और उसमें रात को तेंदुआ आया था, पिछले साल मार्च में। तो हमारे फिर दोस्तों के बीच में ये बात शुरू हुई थी, और एक जो मेरा दोस्त था जो पीलीभीत में रहता है, उसने बताया, क्योंकि वो पीलीभीत में भी शेर और जंगली जानवर काफी होते हैं। तो उसका ये मानना था कि तेंदुआ जो है वो आदमी को देख के नॉर्मली भागता है। पर जैसे भी इन्होंने कहा कि वो किसी ने कहा था कि उसको आदमी के मनुष्यों के खून का टेस्ट लग गया है, तो फिर वो अलग, मैन ईटर जिसको कहते हैं, वो अलग बात हो जाती है। बट इन जनरल दिक्कत क्या हुई है कि हम लोगों ने जो भी जंगल हैं, जंगल काटने शुरू कर दिए हैं और जंगल कम हो रहे हैं। तो जो जगह थी जानवरों की, हमने लेनी शुरू कर दी है। तो ये दिक्कत हो रही है आजकल। हाँ जी मनीषा मैम, यू आर बैक।
Yes, sir. Thank you. And I'm so sorry. Something went wrong with my network, so I got disconnected. Okay. आगे चैप्टर में देखते हैं कि चूंकि जंगल कम होते जा रहे हैं एंड जानवर बेचारे क्या करेंगे, कहीं तो जाएंगे, तो वो भोजन और बाकी चीजों की खोज में शहर की तरफ आ रहे हैं। तो उसमें उनकी तो गलती नहीं है, हम ही उनके घर में घुस रहे हैं। तो हमें नहीं घुसना चाहिए उनके घर पे। जो भी हो, वे जल्दी जल्दी घर की ओर बढ़ने लगे, और अगले कुछ दिनों तक जब भी वे नदी के पास पहुंचते, वे नदी को पार करके वहां से निकल जाते थे। वे उस खूबसूरत जगह पर ज्यादा वक्त तक रुकने के लिए तैयार नहीं थे। कुछ दिनों के उपरांत स्कूल के बच्चे उस नए बांध को देखने, जो बन रहा था, टिहरी की ओर जा रहे थे। मिस्टर मोला ने अपनी क्लास को ले जाने की व्यवस्था की थी, और श्रीमान मणि को भी इस अवसर पर छोड़ना नहीं चाहते थे। उन्होंने भी क्लास को ले जाने के लिए जोर दिया। इसका मतलब था कि तकरीबन 50 की संख्या में लड़के और लड़कियां इस यात्रा में भाग लेने वाले थे, लेकिन बस की क्षमता 30 बच्चों को ही ले जाने की थी। एक मिलनसार ट्रक ड्राइवर कुछ बच्चों को ले जाने के लिए इस शर्त पर राजी हो गया कि उन्हें आलू के बोरों पर बैठना पड़ेगा, और प्रकाश ये डीजल रोलर के मालिक पर दबाव बनाकर उसे वापस सीधे चलने के लिए बना लिया। इस रोलर पर वह और उसके कुछ दोस्त ड्राइवर के पास की सीट पर बैठ गए थे। प्रकाश और उनके साथियों का छोटा सा समूह सूर्योदय होने के साथ ही चल पड़ा, क्योंकि उन्हें कुछ दूर पैदल ही चलकर फंसे हुए रोलर तक पहुंचना था। बस सुबह 9 बजे मिस्टर मोला और उनकी क्लास के विद्यार्थी और श्रीमान मणि और उनके कुछ विद्यार्थियों के साथ रवाना हुई। ट्रक को बाद में वहां से चलना था। बीना पहली बार किसी बड़े शहर जा रही थी और पहली बार बस की यात्रा भी कर रही थी। तो इस गांव के बच्चे, बहुत से बच्चे, या मैं कह सकती हूँ ज्यादातर बच्चे कभी भी बस से भी सफर नहीं कर रहे, ट्रेन और एयरप्लेन की तो बात ही छोड़ दीजिए। तो वो काफी डाउन टू अर्थ थे और उन्होंने सिटी की लाइफ में कभी नहीं देख रखी थी। अब यहाँ पे जो ये लड़की है, पहली बार शहर की तरफ जा रही थी। घुमावदार और ढलानदार सड़क के साथ तीखे मोड़ों के कारण कई बच्चों की तबीयत खराब होने लगी थी। ऐसा लग रहा था कि बस का ड्राइवर बहुत जल्दी में था। वह उन बच्चों को लुढ़काते तूफानी रफ्तार में ले जा रहा था, जिससे बीना को चक्कर आने लगा। इससे अपना सिर अपने हाथ पर रख लिया और खिड़की से बाहर देखने से मना करने लगी। उसके सामने से तीखे मोड़, खड़ी चट्टानें, देवदार के जंगल तथा बर्फ से ढकी चोटियां एक के बाद एक गुजरते रहे। लेकिन वह अपने आप को बहुत बीमार महसूस कर रही थी, इसलिए वह गुजरने वाली हर किसी भी चीज को देखना नहीं चाहती थी। यह कुछ इस तरह से डरावना लग रहा था, जैसे कि अचानक कोई बूंद सैकड़ों फीट का फासला तय करके खाटी में धड़ाम से गिर पड़ी हो। बीना को ऐसा लगने लगा कि काश वह न आती, या काश फिर वो प्रकाश के साथ रोड रोलर पर बैठ गई होती। तो कई बार होता है कि हम पिकनिक मनाने के लिए जाने के लिए बहुत ही उत्साहित होते हैं, बट किसी न किसी कारणवश वो मेमोरीज हमारी थोड़ी सी खराब हो जाती है। अब इस जगह पे इस स्टोरी के हिसाब से यहाँ पे बच्चे एंजॉय नहीं कर पा रहे थे, क्योंकि ड्राइवर को किसी भी रीजन से जल्दी पहुंचने की जल्दी थी, और जल्दी पहुंचने के लिए वो बहुत ही रफ्तार में ट्रेन, ये अपनी जो बस है उसको चला रहा था, जिसके कारण बच्चे गोल, चूंकि ये पहाड़ी का रास्ता था और गोल गोल घूमने के कारण वो बच्चे बार बार ट्रक के अंदर ही गिरे जा रहे थे। शायद मिस रमोला और श्रीमान मणि ने पुरानी बस के झटके और चरमराहट पर ज्यादा गौर नहीं किया, लेकिन इस तरह की बस यात्रा कई बार की थी। वे बड़े बांधों के नफा और नुकसान के बारे में बहस करने में व्यस्त थे। यह एक ऐसी बहस थी जो दिन भर रुक रुक कर कभी हिंदी में, कभी इंग्लिश, तो कभी स्थानीय भाषा में चलती रही। इसी दौरान प्रकाश और उनके दोस्त रोलर के पास पहुंच गए थे। अभी ड्राइवर नहीं पहुंचा था, लेकिन फिर वे उस मोड़ पर टिहरी की दिशा में खड़ा करने में कामयाब हो गए। जल्दी ही बस और ट्रक ने उनको पछाड़ दिया, लेकिन इसके बावजूद भी वह अपनी स्थिर गति से चलता रहा। प्रकाश ने बीना को बस में खिड़कियों के पास बैठा देखा और खुशी से उसकी तरफ हाथ हिलाने लगा, पर बीना ने बिना कोई उत्साह दिखाए हुए ही जवाब दिया। टिहरी के पास जब सड़क समतल हो गई तो बीना ने बेहतर महसूस किया, जैसे कि वे चौड़ी नदी पर बने पुराने पुल को पार कर रहे थे। तभी एक जोरदार धमाके से वे चौंक गए, जिसके कारण बस में कंपन पैदा हुई और उन्होंने देखा कि शहर के ऊपर धूल का गुब्बार उठ रहा था। मिस्टर मोला ने बताया, वे पहाड़ों को बारूद से तोड़ रहे। श्रीमान मणि ने शोक व्यक्त करते हुए कहा, एक पहाड़ का अंत। जब वे बस स्टॉप पर रुके, आलू के ट्रक और रोलों का इंतजार करते हुए चाय पी रहे थे, उस वक्त भी मिस्टर मोला और श्रीमणि के बीच बांध को लेकर बहस जारी थी। मिस्टर मोला ने कहा कि यह आसपास के क्षेत्र सहित देश के बड़े क्षेत्रों में सिंचाई के लिए पानी के साथ बिजली भी उपलब्ध कराएगी, जबकि श्रीमान मणि ने घोषणा कर दी कि इसमें खतरा पैदा होगा, क्योंकि यह बांध भूकंप क्षेत्र में स्थित था। यदि बांध फट जाएगा तो भयानक तबाही मच जाएगी। बीना को ये बातें अजीब सी और समझ से परे लगी। उसने सोचा कि यदि ऐसा होगा तो फिर क्षेत्र में रह रहे जानवरों का क्या होगा। बहस काफी गर्माती जा रही थी, लेकिन तभी आलू का ट्रक वहां आ पहुंचा। उन्होंने अभी भी रोलर दूर दूर तक दिखाई नहीं दे रहा था, इसलिए यह तय हुआ कि श्रीमान मणि, प्रकाश और उनके दोस्तों का इंतजार करेंगे, जबकि मित्र मोला और बस में बैठे सभी बच्चे टिहरी की तरफ पढ़ेंगे। टिहरी पहुंचने में 8 या 9 मील पहले ही रोलर खराब हो गया और इसी कारण से प्रकाश और उनके दोस्तों को पैदल चलकर आना पड़ा। फिर वे ज्यादा दूर नहीं चले होंगे कि उन्होंने खच्चर गाड़ी मिल गई। कुल 5 या 6 खच्चर रहे होंगे जो नौटी में अनाज छोड़कर वापस आ रहे थे। आगे के खच्चर पर एक बालक सवारी कर रहा था, लेकिन बाकी अभी खाली थे। प्रकाश ने पूछा, क्या तुम हमको टिहरी तक छोड़ सकते हो? लड़के ने कहा, आओ सवार हो जाओ। उन खच्चरों पर कोई काठिया नहीं थी। काठिया यहाँ पे अगर कभी आपने हॉर्स राइडिंग या म्यूल राइड करी है तो आपने देखा होगा कि उसमें बैठने को कंफर्टेबल बनाने के लिए कुछ रखा होता है, तो वो काठिया बोली जाती है। उस पर केवल रस्सी से बांधी गई बोरियां थी। हालांकि उनकी ये यात्रा टिहरी स्टॉप पर काफी कठिन साथ ही आनंददायक भी थी। उनमें से किसी ने भी कभी खच्चरों की सवारी नहीं की थी, लेकिन इस पर यात्रा करने से उन्होंने कम से कम अपना 1 घंटा बचा लिया था। पहुंचते ही वे सभी बस स्टॉप पर अपने साथियों को खोजने लगे, पर उन्हें अपने स्कूल का कोई भी साथी वहां नहीं मिला। और जहां तक श्रीमान मणि का सवाल था, जिनको कि प्रकाश और उनके दोस्तों का इंतजार करना था, वे वहां से नदारद हो गए थे।
यस मैम।
तो ये चैप्टर यहीं पे खत्म होता है। अगले हफ्ते में हम नया चैप्टर पढ़ेंगे। तो कोई क्वेश्चन, किसी का कोई प्रश्न है, कोई कहना पूछना चाहेगा कि आप लोग को रिफ्लेक्शन कैसे और कब पोस्ट करनी है? क्या आप जानते हैं कहाँ पे आपको रिफ्लेक्शन पोस्ट करनी होती है? ओके, तो आपके स्कूल में कोई ना कोई आपके स्कूल का टीचर कोऑर्डिनेटर होगा जो माई गुड स्कूल के साथ कोऑर्डिनेट करता है। आपकी जो भी रिफ्लेक्शन है वो आप अपने टीचर्स को दीजिए और टीचर्स मुझे व्हाट्सएप या ईमेल कर सकते हैं। तो आप सभी से गुजारिश है कि अपने रिफ्लेक्शंस दीजिए, जैसे कि अगले हफ्ते जब आप लोग आए यहाँ पे तो हम आपकी रिफ्लेक्शन को रीड करके ही इसकी शुरुआत करें। तो ये तो आपकी एक चीज हो गई। दूसरा बात ये हो गया, रिफ्लेक्शन आप राइटिंग में दे सकते हैं, कोई ड्राइंग बना के दे सकते हैं, या फिर आप एक पॉडकास्ट या आप रोल प्ले भी करके दे सकते हैं। नेक्स्ट वीक हमारे साथ कार्तिक सर होंगे। जुगजीत सर, आप कार्तिक सर के बारे में कुछ बताना चाहेंगे बच्चों को?
हाँ जी, वो कम्युनिकेशन एक्सपर्ट हैं, मेंटल हेल्थ एक्सपर्ट हैं। अगले हफ्ते वो हमारे को रिटन कम्युनिकेशन के बारे में बताएंगे। वो एडवर्टाइजिंग में रहे हैं, उन्होंने किताबें लिखी हैं, आजकल वो पढ़ाते हैं। तो उनको उनके पहले सेशन आप यूट्यूब पे भी देख सकते हैं। उनको पहले उन्होंने कम्युनिकेशन पे वो इस एरिया में बहुत बहुत दिग्गज हैं। और कम्युनिकेशन अगले हफ्ते मैंने जैसे कहा रिटन कम्युनिकेशन के बारे में बात करेंगे।
तो अगले हफ्ते हम मिलते हैं कार्तिक सर से, और एक बुक रीडिंग भी होगा। आप लोग प्लीज पूरा वीक एंजॉय करिए और हमें रिफ्लेक्शन लिख करके अपना भेजिए जो आपने इस आज के 2 बुक रीडिंग से समझा, या आप अपनी कोई जानकारी, अपना कोई एक्सपीरियंस देना चाहते हैं, या फूलों के बारे में लिखना चाहते हैं। आप कुछ भी लिखिए, हम बहुत ही प्यार के साथ उसको पब्लिश करेंगे। सो थैंक यू एवरीवन फॉर जॉइनिंग अस टुडे। बाय बाय, टेक केयर एंड हैप्पी संडे टू एवरीवन।
बाय, थैंक यू, जय हिंद।